Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, we're back discussing Secret Invasion. Now, I'm not going to go too deeply into the actual show this time. The reason being, there's a lot of controversies around the first episode of Secret Invasion, and I want to discuss those instead. So let's get into it. Number one, that intro. Secret Invasion used an AI intro. It's been confirmed. You could kind of tell anyway, to be honest. It was that kind of look about it. It had a very AI look about it. Now, there's a lot of different discourse around this. There's two main camps. One camp that AI is obviously incredibly bad for creative people and creative mediums and the creativity as a whole, and puts artists out of work, etc., etc. Now, firstly, I agree. I think you've got a situation where if you keep using this AI art, eventually it's going to get to a point where potentially it could be sort of indistinguishable. Not in actuality, because AI can't be creative; it only takes from what it has got. But it could become indistinguishable, and at that point, is it diminishing art as a means of expression? Also, the other important part of this is that a lot of these AI tools aren't just using, how do I put this? They aren't just using like some random stock photos to make art or anything. They're pulling art that other people have made, right? So essentially, you're using other people's copyrighted art and their rightful art to create your own art as a result. Now, if this was corporations using their own art, then sort of get it, but we don't know that, of course. We don't know where this AI is pulling from. We don't know the AI they used. So there's a lot of different parts to this that is inherently wrong on the surface. Now, AI law is something that's very much being discussed as parts of the AI, like ChatGPT, parts of the AI discourse that are going on right now with the Writers Guild striking in America. So this is a very poignant, very big topic. I think this was a bad move from a PR standpoint on Marvel's behalf. Now, as regards the other camp, there is another camp. This camp suggests that this is being distastefully done on purpose. And the reason for that is the show Secret Invasion is about Skrulls, right? And Skrulls are invading the Marvel universe. They are copies, for want of a better word, of our favorite characters. They are diminished versions of our main characters, our characters that we've grown to love and care for. And thus, with that, the implication is that the AI is meant to replicate the takeover of human society by something that is inhuman, non-human. Now, I kind of get it. I kind of see the angle. I feel like if they were going to do that, though, it should have been like, I don't know. I feel like it should have been more clearly pointed out in the intro. I don't know, something like certain phrases popping up on screen as this is going past, or the morphing from the like real art into this fake art and have it kind of be like almost drawn in the AI style. Like, you could have done it in a different way and made it feel that way. You know what I mean? You could have made it feel like it was that without being that. Or again, kind of disclaiming it. So I think it was an interesting idea, poorly executed by Marvel. I think in general, I wouldn't want to see it again, but it's been done, and I think it would be more egregious if the show was bad as well, but I don't believe episode 1 was bad. It was slow. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the episode, but I think this is important to kind of go on this point. The show is very creative and is very interesting already. And so I think that despite the fact that they've used a very, very bad representation of their intro, if that's the nitpick of the episode, that's good. If that makes sense. Like, from a writing standpoint, from a filmography cinematography, should I say, standpoint, from like a film standpoint. So yes, it's bad. I agree. I don't think it should have been done. Boo Marvel for that. But at the same time, I think luckily the show has its very many saving graces after the intro that really do save it from being something that can just be like kind of just don't bother watching type thing. So that does lead us to our second point, though, the other controversy so far with Secret Invasion. Now, this is a spoiler for the end of episode 1, so if you haven't watched episode 1, do not listen to this part of the video slash podcast slash wherever you're listening to this to, because I always forget to say that like a moron. So, the end of the episode, we see Maria Hill be fridged. Now, for those who aren't aware what fridging means, it is when a female character, typically in comics, but it's becoming sort of a bigger thing, is fridged. I've used the word to explain. Is killed to advance the plot of a male character. Now, this is a keen example of this. Basically, Maria Hill dies in this episode to spur Fury on into fighting this war against the Skrulls, against Gravik. Now, I have to be honest, I don't think this is the most egregious version of fridging. I think there's very much better examples of like really bad fridging. I think in this instance, how do I say this nicely? Maria Hill is an interesting character. I've always found Kobe Smulders to play her well. I've always found it cool whenever she showed up. I think she's a very good connective piece, similar to like your Claire and the Netflix shows, similar to your like Fury early on, you know, Val sort of now, like those types of connective pieces, the ones that will never get their own project, so it's better that they show up in everything else. So I was happy to see Maria again. I think, but I've got to be honest, and let's be quite honest about this. She is not as three-dimensional as the other characters. She hasn't really got much going on. We don't really know much about her. Yes, she's cool, don't get me wrong, and there's moments that we really like. There's really, really cool moments with her, but she's there. Like, I say that knowing that still that does not make the fridging right per se, as regards the fact that this is a trope that is far too often relied upon, when there's definitely other ways of doing this that I think would have even gave a little bit more shock factor. For example, using Talos instead. I think that would have been very interesting. I think that would have also set up a lot of interesting stakes for Gaia in the episode, Talos' daughter, because she would have essentially led to his death. So that would have been a lot more of an interesting thing to kind of discuss. I think the thing is as well, Talos has had his outing really, and don't get me wrong, I think it's great that he's in this. I really like Ben Mendelsohn, but Talos had a lot of development in that first film, and he got a little bit extra. Talos was Nick Fury for the entirety of Spider-Man Far From Home, even though Samuel L. Jackson was playing Nick in that. Obviously, it was Talos. So we have had a lot of time with Talos. We've had a lot of interaction with Talos. I wouldn't have been sad if it was him. And then kind of Fury and Maria, like this buddy cop throughout the show. But I can't say I'm super mad about the Maria thing. I think it was a good call to be sort of bold in this first episode, because Marvel has been implied to not really be taking as many risks / like upping the stakes. I think they really need to do this. They need to say, hey, this is a legacy character. We're not scared to kill those off if it needs to be done for the story. Now, the other thing as well is that Maria might not actually be dead. That's happened before. Or if she is dead, she could come back. That's not out of the realms of possibility. So I'm not going to rule her out just yet, but I do think that the marketing for this was a bit unfair as well, because everyone was kind of hyped up that Maria would be back for a big part of this journey, and then she wasn't. Like I said, as yet, unless there's flashbacks or some other kind of Maria-esque content. Like maybe there is a Skrull that takes on Maria's appearance for the sake of whatever, I don't know, for the sake of getting into the government. She's working for Rhodey, so maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's the intent, that there is going to be more Kobe Smulders as Maria, but it's going to be a Skrull impersonating Maria. So yeah, I can't really get behind this one. I can't really say I hate it because I don't hate it. I do think from a fridging standpoint, it wasn't the best call. I think there were better calls, but I don't think this isn't your Gwen Stacy dying for Peter Parker, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think this one was basically okay. Not the best move, but not the worst. And the final controversy, which seems to be a controversy that comes up a lot with actually a lot of like Star Wars, Marvel stuff, is that the director, I forget his name off the top of my head, but came out and said, and also, can we just say, can directors and writers for these projects stop talking? Like they either really like make you hate what they're making, or they make you wish that there was another version of what they're making. Because it seems all they talk about is like, oh, this would have been different, and we were going to do this, but we didn't. It's like, stop. Let's just talk about the movie that's actually there, the show that's actually there. Like, yes, have a little bit of like, wait fucking 3 years and then talk about this. Like, don't talk about all these things that you were going to do from the off, because it just makes people pissed at what we did get. Like, talking about it in like 10 years time or whatever, that's fine, I get it, but like, fucking hell, people, like, I really don't swear on here usually, but it really does annoy me. These directors and writers, just stick to directing and writing. Please stop talking about your movies. You're making it sound worse. So with that in mind, the director of the showrunner, I think it was showrunner actually, for Secret Invasion, came out and said basically he didn't read any of the comics. Now, Secret Invasion is not the best comic, like, not nearly. It's not really a great run. It's not the best that Marvel has to offer, but I think these things shouldn't be said, because I think people are inherently going to go, and this happened with the Grand Inquisitor, the actor who played the Grand Inquisitor in Obi-Wan Kenobi. He said that he didn't watch Star Wars Rebels, and I've got to be honest. I don't think that impacted his Rupert Friend. Is it Rupert Friend? I don't think it impacted his performance. I also don't think that this, in this instance, the show will suffer from him having not read the comics, because I don't think the show is really trying to imitate anything other than the Skrulls are invading and taking over, people and changing into people who, are higher up in the system, so to speak. So I don't think it's necessarily, for this one, basically what I'm trying to say is, please stop talking about it, but in this instance, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's always a bad thing that you haven't watched everything, because there's people on set for that. There's people who can, there's people who can do that. The one thing I will say is that sometimes I think it is detrimental. For example, there's a lot of people who are saying, not a lot of people, but Elizabeth Olsen said that a lot of the time on Multiverse of Madness, she had to basically go and say to people, we're doing this in WandaVision, right? So she had to work with what she knew to change things to make them fit, because they essentially redid the same storyline again. Now, personally, I don't think it came out too bad in the end, but the left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing. And I think Marvel is losing itself on that a little bit, especially when they then say to other projects, oh, you can't do this because X, Y, and Z. Why didn't you say that to these projects? It's like the shows. It's essentially what happened before with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU, but on a higher level, right? So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would infer on the movies would never infer on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., apart from like a few small examples. Well, actually, no, they wouldn't. Nothing really. I mean, apart from when Coulson came back in Captain Marvel, but that was more to do with him being in Avengers rather. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that never happened. Now it feels like you've got these shows that are touted as even higher in the kind of the canonicity of Marvel, but like the inferences only go one way. There's a few exceptions that are coming out now. Like, for example, Quantumania has a post-credit scene that has Loki in it, and it's regards to the Loki show. But I feel like they need to get their shit together as regards their canonicity, continuity, etc. again, because it feels like it's starting to get slightly out of hand. And I'd like for them to go back to being, slightly coherent in what they're doing, even if they are doing a multiverse story. So, with all of that said, I am very much looking forward to what else Secret Invasion has to offer. It was a very strong first episode, very strong actors in the show. You've got to remember, this is a star-studded cast. We have Samuel L. Jackson, we have Olivia Colman, we have Emilia Clarke, Ben Mendelsohn, Ben Kingsley Adir. Is that right? I think that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I'm sorry if I got it wrong. So like it's a big cast. And so I'm very excited to see what comes next. I think this could be it could, depending on how good it is, literally rank up in the top 1 or 2 Marvel shows if it handles the plot well, because it could get convoluted, it could get very complex very quickly, and it also could get messy. So if you do it well, Secret Invasion, you might be getting up there. You might be one of the best, but we'll see what happens with that. Thank you guys for listening / watching as always, and I will see you next time. I couldn't tell you what we're going to discuss because suddenly it seems like all our projects are starting to run down for a little bit. But I'm sure something will come out. If not, we'll be discussing the Secret Invasion episode 2 next week. Thank you guys for being here as always. I'll see you later.